There's different levels of content that we have to create now. Because we are going into new markets where people might not even know who we are, we have to develop a certain level of creative that really helps us stand out from other healthcare providers.
That's what we've appreciated is working with you, is that you recognize that there's a lot of sameness in healthcare and kind of bought into that we have to be different.
There's nothing too sexy about primary care, so it's hard to make that appealing. We wanted to create something that resonated with people, not only when they needed a doctor, but when they did.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Welcome to the Between Two Pixels podcast, a podcast for content creators and marketers. And today we have a special guest. Named Tim Reichert.
Hello.
Tim is the VP of Marketing, correct? That's your title?
Correct.
For Aylo Health. And we'll get into what Aylo Health does a little bit, but we've had the opportunity to work with you now for a minute, as they say in the South.
Yeah.
Several years.
Fortunately for you guys, yes.
Starting very early on. And it's been a really fun journey kind of being a part of it. So why don't we start? Today we're going to be talking about branding. You have some really interesting stories and case studies about how the brand has evolved since, well, it's been around, 30 years, but.
Yeah, a little over 30 years.
Yeah, but didn't really start
the Aylo brand.
Branding.
The Aylo brand just recently came about within the last few years, but the company under a different name has been around for over 30 years.
Yeah. So let's start there. First of all, introduce yourself if you want to tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay.
Kind of like how you ended up here. Because you don't have necessarily, a lot of us don't have traditional paths.
Correct.
Into marketing, into your position now. So I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of how you got there.
Yeah. So my name is Tim Reichert. I'm vice president of Aylo Health. I got into marketing about 15 years ago, roughly. I went to school for broadcast administration. I thought getting in school, I was going to be in the radio business. I thought that was what my calling was. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out for me. Well, I guess fortunately it did, because I'm where I am now. But I felt like I wanted to get into radio and the business side of things, not necessarily for the music at the time. It was more on the business side. I had family in radio that kind of drew me to that direction. So that's what I went to school for. Got out of school, realized that that was not going to pay all my bills the way that to live the way that I wanted to. So I got the regular 9-to-5 job. I worked for a nonprofit company for about 13 and a half years before I transitioned over into my current role here at Aylo Health.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And Aylo Health wasn't always Aylo Health. There were something else, right?
Correct.
We know the story. So I think there's a lot of interesting lessons about branding and really messaging and kind of finding a unique positioning that I think that's really interesting to talk about. So
correct.
A little bit about Aylo Health was not Aylo Health. What was Aylo Health before it became Aylo Health? And then what was that?
Yeah. So Aylo Health is a primary care family practice doctor. We have multiple locations, lots of different providers. But when I first started here, we were Eagles Landing Family Practice, which is a mouthful for a marketer to say. But at the time, the business started out as a one office, one provider company, and kind of grew from there over the years. New ownership kind of came in and kept the model in place, made some adjustments to that. And we, when I first got here, we did not have a marketing department at all. We were outsourcing everything to an agency who was kind of doing things kind of piecemeal together. I came in, what I was tasked with was trying to put all the pieces together, figure out how we can set a marketing plan for the company to grow. And the point of all that was so that we could grow.
Okay.
And then over the course of about 2 years, we realized that If we were going to grow outside of our current trade area, we needed to rebrand. We needed to have something that was a name that was less tied to a geographical area, because Eagles Landing is an area south of Atlanta that the people there know. But if we're going to expand outside of that market, we needed something that was less tied to that. And me kind of selfishly wanted something that was easier to market, that looked better, that we could use and kind of sell the brand. So what I do is we sell the brand, the product sells itself, but the brand is what we really focused on.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about what the brand is and how it's different in the marketplace? Because obviously if you're going to expand, you have to be confident that you've got a business model in the brand that will resonate, so that when you launch, you're not trying to convince people and you don't really have something that they'll grab onto, right? So what's kind of unique about the business model and then the brand specifically? Yeah.
So the product itself, the brand or the supports, but the product itself is, we're a doctor's office. There's nothing too sexy about primary care. So it's hard to make that appealing in a sense. What I knew coming in to the position was that we wanted to create something that resonated with people, not only when they needed a doctor, but when they didn't. So we wanted someone that, we wanted to create something that people recognized. That was kind of the starting point of that.
What were some of the most important things for you when you're preparing to rebrand that you knew you had to do? What were some of requirements of the new brand? You'd mentioned geographically it has to be able to kind of grow from there, but what else was important to you from a brand standpoint? Because you're basically starting from scratch, right?
Yeah. So we when we first decided that we needed to rebrand and rename, we wanted to obviously first have to start with a name. One of the main things for me and the rest of the team at the time was we wanted something that was short and easy to remember. We also wanted something that had some appeal visually. So after we found the name, then we had to put kind of a style package on that, and that's kind of what developed the brand. So early on, we went through a number of different names. You guys were obviously involved in that, so you remember that long and tedious process. I will say I was super excited when we first started that project, and then it started to develop into something that was never ending. And mainly for us is because of the trademark problem. So that was another thing. We needed something that we could get a federal trademark on. And that was the biggest hurdle that we had to jump. We quickly realized that because 35% of the companies in America are in healthcare, it's super hard to get a trademark passed through that is not already being used somewhere else. So that was the biggest hurdle. But the things that we wanted were a short name, something that was recognizable, that could be trademarked, and that had the style that we wanted to put on there was something different. Yeah.
And I think that's what we've appreciated is working with you, is that you, I think, recognize that there's a lot of sameness in healthcare. I remember when we started it, it was like everything is blue, or for the most part, it has blue in it. It might be a variation of purple. And so when we looked at all the competitors, it was kind of crazy how similar everything looked. So I think I do respect that you guys recognized, there's a balance between, does it feel like healthcare? Does it feel different that people don't know it's healthcare, but we want to be separate? So can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated that, a level of comfort where people know this is healthcare, I recognize it, versus you have to be totally different. You guys have almost gone and kind of bought into we have to be different, or else people aren't going to really necessarily connect with us. Is that true and fair?
That's exactly right. We, prior to working for Aylo Health, I had no healthcare experience. I had marketing experience, but not having that healthcare experience, I think, really helped us, because I was coming into this with an outside perspective, not wanting to do things the same like all these other healthcare companies do things. We were looking at companies like Apple and Nike and the Starbucks and companies that were outside of our industry and taking cues off of things that they were doing. So because we're selling a brand, again, we're selling a service that people don't know that they need when they see the ad that we're putting in front of them. So we have to be recognizable. We want them to, when they do have a cough or cold or something like that, when they're looking for a doctor, they remember the Aylo brand, and that's where they go. So it's a little hard. We're not selling shoes or coffee or computers where people see an ad and they can go out and buy it right then. So
yeah, definitely. And I know even just bringing in some of the principles of like hospitality, and I think that was really interesting too. Can you talk a little bit about the patient experience side of things and kind of going in a different direction from what other healthcare providers like you do? I feel like that's not something that has been a focus point in the industry.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that that we don't have control of, at least on my side from the marketing side. We don't have control over things like how the providers practice medicine. That, they're the experts in that. We don't tell them what to do. When you go to the doctor, when you get into the back and you're talking to a doctor, that's their time. That's what they specialize in. What we wanted to do was try and make the overall experience different. We did not want it to feel antiseptic when you go to our office, like every other doctor's office that you go in. They all have the same furniture and the cold rooms, and they're playing cable television on the TVs there in the waiting room, and everybody's miserable. We wanted to create an experience from the time you walk into the doors that you feel like you're in a different space. So we really pulled off of the hospitality industry to try and make that happen. So, we made our waiting rooms more comfortable. They're bright, they're airy, and they just feel different. Because we found that our providers actually appreciate that, because when the patients get back with them, they're not in that cold, cranky mood anymore. So it helps all the way around. So the things like hospitality, we really dug into that. We also invest heavily in technology. So we use a lot of our resources to develop things to make things easier on the patients, whether it's scheduling appointments or looking at labs on their portal, things like that. And the experience online, kind of all that is pulled together in one cohesive brand. Yeah.
So going back to the rebrand decision, we were already working with you to produce advertising and content, and so we knew the brand pretty well.
You guys have been around with us. Honestly, since I don't know, it was about 6-8 months in with my current with Aylo. When I brought you guys in to do. Was it just a video?
I think you called and said we need an explainer video.
Yeah. When I first came in, like I mentioned, the company had an agency that was basically running everything, kind of on their own, without really any guardrails on. They were just basically sending bills.
There's a lot of design assets, and we would just like crazy.
Just there was no continuity between things. They would just try whatever, and it was very manila. And it just looked like everything else that doctors were doing. So when I came in, I quickly realized that I wanted to utilize some fresh ideas. So I remember calling you guys because I had a previous connection with Josh, and so calling you guys and talking to you and saying, I just needed an explainer video, like that, an overview video, I think is what we called it at the time. So that way we had at least a starting point, like here's where we're going to break everything off from. And so this overview video was just the start of what was to come. For sure. And then, you guys then got into doing some design stuff with us. And I think we utilized you guys to do the first redesign of the website back in the day. So that was the first of many projects until we finally decided that we just needed to bring you guys on as a full-fledged partner of ours, so your team is an extension of mine now. And I appreciate that because it's the way that you guys work is it's refreshing when you look at other agencies that are out there that like to to charge a lot to do a little because they have name recognition or they have this big client list. Where with you guys, I feel more comfortable being able to reach out and ask for things that are not necessarily in the scope of work that we're doing, and you guys handle it. So it's
that's great. It's been awesome, and I feel like we spend half our lives with your team. So, but it's been fun because we've had the opportunity to do a couple rebrands, including the big one, the naming and the design, and then lots of advertising, and just I think have built really good relationship. Like not just the work we're doing, but like we really, I think our team enjoys working with your team, and it's been really, really fun. We do a lot of work. You also have other agencies that do media placement and PR and stuff like that. How did you during the rebrand balance internal versus external resources? I know you relied on us for a lot of it, but we certainly didn't do all of it on the messaging, stuff like that. And then how do you do that now?
Yeah, well, now it's important for me to make sure that all of our key stakeholders in the marketing department, whether it's in my internal staff or external agencies like you guys or some of the others that we use, work well together. So it's almost like you guys are the closest thing to an extension of my staff that we have. And we, when we were going through the rebrand and doing all that, you guys were obviously heavily involved in helping us with that. We did do a lot of internal stuff with staff then, but when we were going through that, I was super slim on staff. I think I had, we were really myself and someone else for quite a while because we were, laying the foundation and using experts in the area like you guys to help us. And there wasn't necessarily a need at that time to grow my staff yet because we weren't to the point where we were scaling. Yeah. But as we started to scale over the years, I've added key people to the team. Yeah. And so now we have a larger staff internally, but I guess one of the good things about working with you guys is I don't have to add a whole ton to my internal team because you guys facilitate the right people to work on projects that we have, and I can rely on you guys to do a lot. And again, it's just you guys work well with us and our other agencies. So I know it's not unheard of, but we bring in, bi-weekly, we have basically all hands meeting, in-person meeting with you guys and, other agencies that we work with. So we almost force you guys to work with our other partners too. So
that's great.
That's helped. Yeah.
That ecosystem I think is really healthy. So I think that's the importance of finding agencies and internal staff that work well together, so no egos and all that, just because so much more gets done when people can work together. But we're able to bring specialization motion design or something like that, where you wouldn't necessarily want to hire a person that you're only going to use 10% of the time or something like that. You can kind of pull them off the bench and stuff. But
and it really helps that you guys know the brand so well. That if I were to go out and try and hire a separate agency to do some motion design stuff for us, I mean, we'd have the brand package that we could give them, but they're not good. They don't know what I like and what my team likes. Like you guys know before you even put something in front of us if we're going to like it or not. Because we just work so well together.
All right, cool. So let's go back to the point at which you're preparing to brand. You were Eagles Landing. Well, there's Eagles Landing Family Practice, and then we helped you transition to Eagles Landing Health, right? Because it was more than just family practice. And then shortly after, so there was all of that communicating internally, and then I think you came to us and introduced the idea that we need to rebrand, and here's why. Originally Eagles Landing Family Practice was the company. Over the years, we started adding different services that were not typical of just a family practice or primary care provider. Things like imaging and in-house labs and pediatrics, things like that. So the name Eagles Landing Family Practice did not
fit. It did not encompass all that. We had so much name recognition in the area that we had been on the south side of Atlanta for the past 30 years that it would have, at the time, I felt like it was suicide to try and rip that name away. So we decided, well, let's subtly rebrand to Eagles Landing Health to make it encompass more than just the family practice side of things. So we did some subtle changes to the name, obviously, and to the design of things. We kept pretty much everything relatively the same, with the help of you guys. So that's when, I remember having that conversation with you saying, we're keeping, we need to change to make it more encompassing.
Has to be different, but the same.
Yeah. And I think, at the time it was, we were having issues with like websites. Like we had like multiple websites for different modalities, because you couldn't sell or you couldn't have a pediatric site or an endocrinology website under family practice. It just didn't make sense. And it was so hard. So we decided, let's come up with this parent company name. We were still going to have Eagles Landing Family Practice, but we also had Eagles Landing Pediatrics and, family pediatrics we had. So that's when we put Eagles Landing Health into place. And that was going to stay on the south side of Atlanta in that market and stay branded that forever. That was what we were going to keep because we had so much name recognition. And we still, at the same time doing that, we still had plans that we were going to be expanding into different parts of the state. And the difference, what we were going to do then was just we were still going to come up with a new name. We wanted to have a new name for these new expansion offices. It's going to be the same company, same value props. Everything was going to be the same, but the brand was going to be different. We were going to sell that brand in new markets. And then over time, the more and more we thought about how much of a headache it would be to have two different names and two different brands selling basically the same service. It was there was just a time when we got to rip the Band-Aid off and say, look, we're going to rebrand. And I was nervous at that time because we had so much name recognition in the area, but that's where we enlisted you guys. So you were already working with us and you already knew the brand, and you were working on the new brand at the same time we were doing this rebrand for Eagles Landing Health. And so you guys came in, and I remember talking to you saying we need a way to announce this rebrand to our current patient population, and how are we going to rip this Band-Aid off without freaking everybody out and thinking that their healthcare provider sold out to some large corporation or hospital system or something like that. So we needed to, make that announcement and do that over time. And you guys came in and really did a good job. Kind of reassuring our patients that we were not bought out. We were still the same. We just had a different name. And that went over a lot smoother than I had anticipated.
I know there's a lot of concern for how that would be received and a lot of the assumptions because right before the Aylo Health rebrand, there was obviously no name. There was an idea and a strategy knowing that was going to work. If I recall correctly, the first thing that we worked on was some research, right? And some of the research was about really making sure that when the business model and the messaging that we'd established in the South Side translated to other areas. Because the idea was you've got 12 locations-ish at the time. And then if you're going to 15 and 20 and 30 and 40, you need to make sure that that's not something you want to like go back and change the messaging, right? You want to be confident, right? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the the research? We did focus groups and things like that. What did you gain out of that? I remember talking with like internal, like existing patients and new patients, and how did that help the process for you guys?
Yeah, there was a number of different ways that helped us, not only from knowing what how the brand needed to appeal to people, but it helped with just the messaging that we use on an everyday basis and the creative that we're doing. So, we did a lot of in-person focus groups. We recruited some of our current patients that have been patients for a while, brought them in and really just talked to them about their what they liked and didn't like about the Eagles Landing family practice and Eagles Landing Health, and then took the likes and really amplified those, took the dislikes back to the team and said, here's where we're missing the mark. And then kind of used that information from internal patients to help make our product better in our current market, as well as when we expand. And then we also did, focus groups in different areas of people that had no idea who we were, and we knew what our target audience was. We knew who our, who the people that we saw as our most valued patients, and we found them, did lots of in-person focus groups with them over the course of time and got a lot of reassuring feedback. I think a lot of the stuff that we found out during that time with you guys kind of reinforced what we already knew going into it, but it was good reassurance because then that's really what allowed me to kind of lay in when we were making decisions on things like, what does our waiting room look like? Right. I remember very distinctly sitting in a room with our team going through the design of things and, voicing some pretty serious concerns about the fact that our waiting room needed to be different. Yeah. And we were going down a path where it was going to be nice, but it wasn't different. So we, kind of went back to the drawing board at that point and really kind of laid into to develop what we have today. And I think one of the takeaways that we've gotten from new patients that have been in our new offices and seen the atmosphere that we provide is that it really is different and they enjoy it. It feels different and they like that. So
I love that from just in terms of thinking about the sequence of launching a new brand, because it can get really complicated, obviously. But step one is to recognize and have a real clear need and business justification for why you're doing it. To doing some research. I mean, it's neat looking back and seeing like a straight line between some of the conversations we had in focus groups. You mentioned the one where we would ask them about quality, how important quality is. They'd be like, quality is the most important. We'd be like, okay, what do you mean by quality? They'd be like, well, a doctor that listens to me and pays attention. We're like, technically that's not quality, but that's great to know that that's how you perceive quality. Yeah. So that directly tied into the patient experience, the communication, messaging strategy, all that stuff, right? Yeah. Also found out, ask them questions about what would encourage them or how far would they drive to see a doctor, right? And we knew that it was almost correlated based off the level of specialization that they need. So they drive farther for a specialist. For a general practitioner, I'll see whoever's available. So that kind of tied into the whole idea of like team-based care and stuff like that. So it was really encouraging to see how the research really directly tied into some of the messaging, right? So then there's the research part of it, and then we go into like the design and naming part, right? Whereas you kind of charged us with coming up with like a list, and so we kind of came up with a bunch of stuff internally, back and forth, which I know is kind of a painful process of coming up with lists, and because that's the naming part is messy. Yeah, it's always messy. It always has been and always will be messy, right? Yeah, because it is very subjective, and it's also, like you said, trying to figure out which names can we use. Once we kind of agreed on that, we had a color palette, and I would say the next step then, would you agree, is like the foundational brand elements. So we put together messaging guides, brand guides. What does the brand look like? What does it sound like? I mean, pretty detailed, like this is the language you use. So
I guess the Bible of the company.
So do you feel like that's been, obviously I think you saw that as necessary, but how would you say it still kind of guides a lot of the decisions and stuff you do now, the stuff we did back then?
We still reference the brand guide every day, the messaging guide every single day. Our staff is going back to determine, if we're creating talking points for social, like we go to the messaging guide to decide, which point are we going to pull out today? We have everything is predetermined for the most part. We've put in the time and effort to develop that back in the day. So now that we you don't need to think about a whole ton of new stuff.
Yeah.
We know what the message is, so we just pull it out of the messaging guide and put it in play.
Yeah. That's great. And then once we established that, then we had to basically build all the marketing assets. I mean, talk a little bit about the channels you use right now, and then talk a little bit about how you use us and your internal team to kind of execute all of the marketing campaigns. Because as you scale, obviously there's complications. You're opening new locations, and so you have to make sure that you're delivering a message to the new locations, and you're getting them excited about the fact that you're coming, and so that has to be different. So I want to get into a little bit of that.
There's different levels of content that we have to create now, because we are going into new markets where people might not even know who we are. Mm-hmm. We have to develop a certain level of creative that introduces the brand for someone that has no idea what Aylo is. They don't know how to say the word because it's spelled AYLO, and it's some people pronounce it wrong. So we have to introduce the brand as this is new to you, and here's everything that we do. So we have different sets of creative that do that introduction and really start to lay the foundation for the brand as we enter the market. So we do that on a number of different channels. Obviously, digital is the biggest that we use because it's easy to pivot, and we can pinpoint certain people, the target demographic and the target market that we want to reach. We do television is still a good one for us because it's more of a traditional means. It's hard to gauge, but it is it's a necessary evil in my sense. We do billboard advertisements because we have to be out of home. We have to meet people where they are, and again, we're selling a service that people don't need when they see us all the time. So we have to have multiple touch points all over the place for people to have that brand recognition. So when they do need our service, they come to us. So we're finding that a lot. Our brand searching on Google is really high because people are going in these new markets. It's high because people are seeing us out in the universe, and they're coming to search for us. So and even when people don't search directly for us, but they search for a doctor near me, they're going to see the Aylo name and, oh yeah, I remember that. I saw an ad for them, or that billboard where, So, and, and our building is an extension of our marketing effort too. So we don't just, go to the strip malls and put up a little, I call them doc in a box, where, we just put a doctor in there and put a sign out and hope people come. We make sure that our building is appealing and people see that because it's an extension of who we are in the brand. Yeah.
That's great. I think looking back at the campaign when we were talking about, because you said we meet with you twice weekly for like half day workshops, basically. So I think it's been a good example of, I think, a really healthy collaboration, because you're not relying on us for everything, and you kind of own the strategy and the business decisions, and then you're kind of relying on us to. It's almost like you're coming to us and saying, like, we're the doctor, like, hey, we've got this problem and we need, and then we come back with like some potential solutions, and then we kind of go back and forth. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on going into the new market. The problem was we had to figure out a way to introduce Aylo to people that didn't know anything about it. So we started talking about teaser campaigns, stuff like that. So you guys basically came to us and said, hey, we need to warm up the market and prepare them for the coming of Aylo Health, right? Can you talk a little bit about how that went and what the ultimate solution was for that in terms of the messaging and the messaging evolution, and then bringing that back to now they're aware of Aylo Health, and so we can kind of show them the regular messaging that's the traditional stuff. So anything on that process? How did the campaign concept come about? And then how did you work with our team to kind of bring it to fruition?
Yeah. So we knew that going into a new market where people did not know who we were, we needed to warm the market up. We needed to get the brand out there and kind of just get some exposure. We were advertising the brand before we had anything to even sell in the market, before we even had a building up. We were advertising the brand. So we knew we needed to do that, because once our doors open, if people don't know who we are, then it's
can't start from zero.
We can't pay the bills with starting from zero. So we had to have a way to get people in the doors from day one. And so that's when we came to you guys and, basically said, we need to warm the market up. Let's figure out a plan to do that. There was a lot of back and forth on, some ideas on how we could do that. We landed on, just creating attention in the market to basically, we didn't just throw darts at a board and say, we're going to go to this town or this city. We knew we were going to where we're going because there was a need for our service. And because we knew that there was some tension already in the market for people didn't have good healthcare services. So we decided to, with the help of you guys, let's lay into that, and let's showcase the fact that, hey, you guys don't have us here yet. You don't have what we sell yet. You've been, experiencing subpar healthcare for so long. And, we even, dramatized some stories that we had heard to kind of showcase that. And, I think the way that you guys do the creative for us, and, that we collaborate back and forth on that, is I've yet to see another healthcare company do it in the style that we do with the level of quality that you guys provide us, but also just it's a differentiator for us in my mind. So, when people in these new markets started seeing that level of advertising for a healthcare company, it created a buzz, And so once we had something to sell, people were ready to give it a try because we had already introduced the fact that they didn't have us yet, but they needed us. So once they saw that we were opening, it's kind of fell in line. So it worked great.
Yeah. That's fun. So that whole campaign, it's like the teaser campaign, we have a whole sequence built out, as you know, to introduce new markets and specifically timing of the messaging. So that first phase you talked about, and that again goes back to the research. So we started hearing all these pain points and frustrations with healthcare, and we're like, let's make sure everybody else knows that their healthcare needs to be better. Yeah. So like we have these few people talking about how frustrating it is. So let's advertise and remind people that they deserve something better before the solution's even there. So that's kind of like the phase one, which is like remind them that they have a problem and then tell them a solution's coming. And then, by the way, now Aylo is the solution, right? So we have that whole process. Yeah. And now we're kind of in a cycle of production where we're, producing campaigns on a regular basis, and we're kind of using the messaging wheel and the messaging framework to kind of dictate what the market needs to hear. And can you talk a little bit about how it's strategic in terms of like deciding what's the right message for the market based off of how familiar are they, and maybe an example of the new markets where you're finding that I think we did a really good job communicating that Aylo is open late and on weekends. And so it's like it's like a primary care, but with the convenience of a urgent care. But now you're finding that that message has come across so well that some people are coming in and being like, oh, I need to get into Aylo, and then I'm going to see my like regular doctor after that. So now we're actually going back and be like, yeah, that's true. But like I used it in a meeting, the example of like Taco Bell now, where they did such a good job of explaining how good they were at 2 a.m. when you're drunk. Right. Yeah. Now they're like, oh, we're also tasty at noon for lunch. Yeah. So it's a little bit of that too. Right. So, so talk a little bit about how you see matching market to messaging and how that kind of evolves. So we're not saying the same thing all the time. Right.
Yeah.
What's that process like?
I don't want to say we overcorrected when we started realizing that we needed to push the value props more. So, we entered the markets with the tension, like, hey, here's, you don't have good healthcare, so we're here to save the day, So we started out with that, and then we went into the phase where it was, our grand opening phase, where we're announcing, hey, we're here, we're open, here's what we do, and here's who we are, and this is what we provide. And then we realized that people, but we needed to make some adjustments kind of on the fly with some of those messaging to kind of really hit home to say, well, we are actually different than your doctor. That a lot of people are starting to see, well, maybe they're just another fancy doctor's office that's they look nice and their stuff's, their marketing content's really good, but I got a relationship with my doctor and I'm just going to stay there because, whatever. And then we started hearing that people didn't even realize that we were open 7 days a week, even though we were saying that in the ads. We didn't have any ads that were specifically focused on just one or two of those value props that were easy to convey, that were a true differentiator from us and the guy next door. So we started pushing those, and then that really helped because we started seeing the weekend appointments, and we're open later than most doctors, so we saw people coming in late, and because we started pushing that, and then it worked so well that we started seeing people that were coming in for those and didn't realize that they can come see us during the day too, and just for a regular physical exam, or if they need something that we can be their family doctor. I can't even count how many times I've heard people in the communities that we're going into tell me that their doctor will not see them if they are sick. That's crazy. They're a doctor, but and I'm talking to them like, well, what do you do? Like, well, we have to make telehealth appointments. Telehealth's great. It's convenient, but I mean, if you think about it, how is a doctor going to diagnose anything without laying hands on you or drawing labs or knowing? So, there's certain providers that are like that. There's providers out there that you can't be seen for 2 weeks. I'm sick now. I want to come in now. So we started really kind of pushing that messaging. Say, hey, we always take new patients, so you can see us today. Yeah. So
that's great. So as we close, there's, I'm sure a lot of people that are going to be in your shoes or your shoes several years ago that come into a situation. They know they need to grow a brand. They know there's a lot of potential, but they're wrestling with some of the decisions about where to start, how to structure agency relationships. Do we find an independent contractor to do some design stuff for us and just kind of dip our toe in it? Do we hand over everything to an agency partner and pay a bunch of money and hope it works out and trust them? Like, what advice would you give people in your situation that are kind of in a similar situation now with their brands?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is to find an agency that you're comfortable with. You almost have to be overly confident in your ability to communicate with an agency. Like the way that my group and you guys work together is awesome. I mean, we are steadily communicating, and we've built a relationship and a trust in each other. So I think it's very important to find an agency that you can have that trust with and that you can communicate with. It's super important though to always kind of reevaluate things to make sure that you're not just kind of on autopilot. You always have to kind of not necessarily reinvent things, but you always have to make sure that you're making things fresh and continuing to build on what you've already done. So, over the years, we've worked with you guys for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years now. And it's not just every project that we've had, we didn't just give to you guys. I've level set things and made sure that I checked myself, and have been out and entertained other agencies to work on different parts of the project. But in talking with some of these other agencies, it wasn't nothing against them, but I already had the relationship with you guys, and you guys provide the quality that is top notch. So, it's been a no brainer for me to continue to use you guys and do that. But that relationship's built on years of trust, and it's just you guys, you get me, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
So trust is something we talk about, and can you talk specifically about, because I think that's important for people to know. If you don't have trust, then there's second guessing. There's people trying to protect themselves because, they don't want to take the blame for something that goes wrong. You have to be vulnerable. Like, you guys are asking us to do stuff. In some cases, you don't know how much it's going to cost necessarily. You're just like, it has to get done. You have to trust that we're not going to overcharge you for stuff, right? Yeah. We're trusting that, like, when we're doing something for you, you're going to recognize the value of it. So there's a lot of those things that kind of go in the gray area.
Yeah. I mean, I think, early on when we first initially reached out to you guys to just do an overview video, that was kind of the first, dip in the water to kind of give you guys a try, and the content that came out of that was great. We did good and we wanted more, so we started to do some other things, and then after working with you and the team for at BP for I think we were probably a year in before we decided let's figure out how we can just make this to where I don't have to scope things out every single time, because that was what was kind of slowing us down. Like, I knew that I had ideas, and I wanted you guys to help us with those ideas, but we had to wait on scoping things out. How much is it going to cost and all that? We did kind of do some of that, but that's when we started to talk about the agency, kind of I say it's more like a retainer fee, but our agreements that we have. I know what I can ask of you guys and what's in your wheelhouse and what might not be in your wheelhouse, but I can certainly discuss it with you. And if it's you guys are honest and let me know, that's something that we can do and we'll make it work. And, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, basically it's the motto would be start with a small project to make sure that there's a good relationship. It's almost like you don't walk up to someone and ask them to marry you. You're just like, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee?
You can't dive in all the way right away. That's that'd be career suicide, because you got to know what else is out there too. Like I know, I know who else is out there. I know the agencies that court us, and I mean, like I said, we've done reevaluations and said, is this still the right fit? Are we growing too big or too fast for them? And you guys have actually kept up with our growth because you guys are growing too, you know? So, I mean, it's been a healthy relationship. So, starting out, I was a 1-person team, and you guys didn't have as many people as you do now,
probably,
but
12 or 13 at the time.
Yeah. And you guys have grown over the years just like we have. So we're almost like growing up together.
Yeah. Yeah. So the model for people thinking about this, looking into starting a relationship with an agency partner, start with a project that you can see if you work well together, maybe something that's like not terribly risky, right? So that if it doesn't go great, it's fine. 2 is do a couple project-based things, and that's going to require some back and forth to understand how you price and what you charge for and how you handle changes and like all that stuff. Because I think, as you said, the goal then is to have a relationship where a lot of the administrative side that doesn't really help anybody, that's just like back and forth, that kind of goes away, because that who you're working with, they're going to charge fairly, and they're going to kind of fill in the gaps if there's stuff that needs to be done, and it's going to work itself out, because at that point you've got an extension of your team, which is kind of how we feel. So we feel like when we're spending your money, we feel like it's kind of like our money. Like we're trying to not do stuff we don't have to do. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the mentality you have to have, is rather than a client and an agency and they're both trying to serve themselves. It's like, if the agency tries to serve the client, then it's actually the right situation, because the agency is going to benefit in the long run. Yeah. So,
one of the things that, I mean, you always say it. I don't know if you realize that you say it when you do, but whenever we're talking about, I mentioned something new that we're doing, you always say, let us know how we can help. Yeah. You're not injecting like, say, well, let me do this, or we'll do this for you. It's like you want us to engage you, and that means a lot. You guys are in our office more than half of our staff, I think. So, and you guys are known, your staff is
Yeah.
part,
It's fun going there.
So, other departments within my company know who you guys are. You guys spend time at our offices, and, so it's just, it's a good relationship all the way around.
That's great. So when you think about the right relationship between you as the brand and us as the agency, you decided that you don't, it's best to work with a company that has enough size to deliver and keep up even as you grow, but is not too big. So you chose not to work with like the big well-known agencies in Atlanta or somewhere else. And you also chose not to find a really inexpensive kind of like mom and pop that just has a couple people doing things. So what is it about our size and our makeup that worked for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that there is a differentiator between a small, I guess I'll call them like a local marketing shop that can do things to a certain level of skill, which they serve their purpose. There are small companies that don't want to pay for a whole ton of stuff because they don't have the budget. So those smaller agencies serve their purpose and they're good. But then you got, there's I'm reluctant to call you like a mid-level size company. Like BP is not like, a mid-level the quality, I say, but you got these big, well-known national agencies that have high dollar, price tags that come with them, and they are really good. But you're paying for a lot of that, a lot of overhead that's not necessary. Where you guys, I feel like, in comparing apples to apples as far as content quality and the people in general, it's, we're not paying for stuff that we don't need. We don't need the big high rise, to building, though, we're not in Midtown, and, we're not paying for all of that extra stuff. And just because you have a big name client on your list doesn't mean that, I should have to pay extra just because of that. You guys, provide, I put the quality of work that you guys have done for us up with any other agency that we've had the chance to work with, or that has courted us. And, so we don't have to pay the inflated fees just because there's a name recognition there. So it's valuable to have that knowledge going in, to know that there are agencies like you guys that provide the quality that a big name does, that, is not necessarily needed to spend. You don't need to spend the extra money on them.
Yeah. Any parting advice for marketing leaders, kind of things that you have found to be the keys to your success so far, either leading from a marketing standpoint or the actual execution of marketing? What are the things that you feel like have been the most important in helping you be successful? Yeah,
I think, a lot of people tend to try and go what's after the shiny new object, and they try to do the new thing too soon. Well, we have a foundation of things, ways that we do, that we market kind of set. And, we stick with that, but we're always looking at what's coming next, and, kind of dipping our toes in the sand over here to make sure that, hey, we need to stay in line and what's coming next. So we don't go fully over here. We still keep in maintenance mode and things that we're doing with our current marketing campaigns, but we always have to be aware of what's coming next. And, I think, just being aware of what's going on with the next thing. Don't be caught, with your pants down and realize that, oh crap, I should have been doing that all along. That, and you got to find the right people. I got a great staff that we built through the years, and I couldn't do it without them. And just like, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for, the help of you guys and other agencies that we use for different things as well. So, you got to surround yourself with the right team of people that work well together, that share the same vision, and, that all have the same goals. I mean, you guys want to grow just like we do. And, we're happy to be a part of it together.
That's great. Thanks for coming in, Tim. We appreciate your time. And certainly appreciate your partnership and the relationship that we've developed kind of over time in our agency and your company. And we're super excited. I think, Aylo definitely has a really unique and interesting model that's needed, and people need your service. And that's why it's exciting to see how well you guys are growing, and some of the ways that you're growing, not just through the business, but because you're bringing on really good people, you're partnering with really good people, and you're treating people right. So you have a lot of loyalty within the organization, even with your clients. So we're super thankful to be part of it, and just really excited for the future of our partnership and Aylo Health. See where it goes. So appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.